Imagine a time when an entire kingdom was drowning in idolatry. The king of that land believed he deserved to be worshipped, and he ordered every citizen to bow before idols. Anyone who chose to worship the one true God would face the death penalty. Fear gripped the hearts of the people so deeply that even those who knew the truth were too afraid to speak it. Yet, even in those dark times, Allah placed the light of faith in the hearts of a few young men. They came from respected and noble families. They were educated, honored, and had promising futures ahead of them. But when they discovered the truth, they realized they had only two choices: either bow before falsehood and live a life of comfort, or stand firmly for the truth and risk losing everything. Without hesitation, they chose the second path. They declared, "Our Lord is the Lord of the heavens and the earth. We will never worship anyone besides Him." When news of their faith reached the king, they were summoned to his royal court. The king gave them a final warning: "Accept my religion, or you will be put to death." Although they knew the consequences, they refused to compromise their faith. They understood that while people may have the power to kill, only Allah is the true owner of life and death. Realizing they could no longer remain in the city, the young men decided to flee. They traveled into the mountains until they found a secluded cave where they could worship Allah in safety. As they entered the cave, they raised their hands in prayer and said, "Our Lord, grant us mercy from yourself and guide us rightly in our affair." That sincere supplication marked the beginning of one of the greatest miracles mentioned in the Quran. Allah caused them to fall into a deep sleep, not for a night, not for a month, not even for a year, but for centuries. Days became months, months became years, and years became generations, yet they felt nothing. According to the Quran, they remained in the cave for 300 years, plus another 9, making a total of 309 years. During all that time, Allah Himself protected them. The sunlight was directed in such a way that it never harmed their bodies. To preserve them, Allah turned them from one side to the other. Anyone who looked into the cave would think they were awake, though they were fast asleep. At the entrance of the cave, their faithful dog stretched out its front legs, guarding them. The sight was so awe-inspiring that anyone approaching the cave would have fled in fear. Finally, the time decreed by Allah arrived. After 309 years, He awakened them from their miraculous sleep. As they opened their eyes, they looked at one another in confusion and asked, "How long have we stayed here?" Some replied, "Perhaps a day," while others said, "Or part of a day." None of them had the slightest idea that more than 3 centuries had passed. Feeling hungry, they gave one of their companions a few silver coins and asked him to go quietly into the city to buy food, warning him not to let anyone discover their whereabouts. When the young man entered the city, he was stunned. The streets were different. The buildings had changed. The people's clothing and language were unlike anything he remembered. Everything seemed unfamiliar. Still confused, he went to buy food and handed the shopkeeper one of his old silver coins. The merchant stared at the coin in disbelief. It belonged to an age that had disappeared centuries earlier. Within moments, people gathered around him. Some wondered whether he had discovered an ancient treasure, while others questioned who he really was. As the truth slowly unfolded, the people realized that these were the very young believers whose mysterious disappearance had become part of history. They understood that Allah had preserved them for over 3 centuries as a sign of His limitless power. Their story became undeniable evidence that Allah is fully capable of resurrecting the dead on the Day of Judgment. According to reports mentioned in several classical Quranic commentaries, the people accompanied the young men back to the cave, where Allah caused them to die after fulfilling His divine purpose. The Quran does not describe their deaths in detail. Instead, it emphasizes the lesson behind the event. Allah's promise is always true. Resurrection is a certainty, and those who sacrifice everything for their faith are never abandoned by their Lord. The story of the companions of the cave is therefore far more than an ancient historical account. It is a timeless lesson in faith, courage, patience, and complete trust in Allah. It reminds every generation that truth is never measured by numbers, and that when a believer stands firmly for Allah, His help comes in ways beyond human imagination.